used as the place where the fiestas were celebrated.
Yeah, and I should add, that's where my friends and I, a number of families, used to play baseball there in that lot for 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years, hotter than heck, but we were out there playing baseball in August and September.
So that's where the fiesta, why did it end there? Was it because what do you call it? That was a place where they had all the activities?
Yeah, just and there were different activities there. They used to have the small carnival type groups would come through there.
And the stage for the queen.
Stage for the
princess.
queen. So it was it was an area that the community used for just different diverse events
And
during
did they
the
have,
50s.
in the parade, did they have bands and marching groups?
Yes, it was just kind of your regular type of parade, festivities, Boy Scouts marching. I mean, no one ever got told no.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Everybody was in the parade, yeah.
So that was Troop 45 that did the marching then?
Yeah,
The Boy
yeah,
Scouts,
yes,
Troop 45.
yes, yes. I mean, it was just, I mean, everybody looked forward, it was big.
Uh-huh.
It was just big. If you're
Uh-huh.
gonna be out of town, you cancel your plans because you needed to be there.
And Carlos, did they, what did they call you, Carlos? Charlie?
Charlie.
And did they close one of the streets next to N Street, next to the where they had the Fiestas Patrias for the dance?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it was, I didn't know how they did all this planning, but it's like, South Colton like took over,
Uh-huh.
took over that weekend or those days. And there was a lot of, cooperation from city officials and law enforcement, and it was just a very fastidious a time.
Yeah.
And we used to have those eggs.
Cascarones?
Cascarones, yes, big difference. It's all year long you wait cascarones, you save the shell and then put confetti in there, and then you break it and people say. So there was a lot of that going on. We had a great time.
Yeah, and for how long did the Fiestas Patrias go on? That was September 15 and 16, 2 days?
Yeah. It started to kind of die out, I think, about where it got scaled down.
Uh-huh.
Got scaled down, probably the late 50s, I think.
And that
Early
was
60s.
Yeah, and that was for 2 days celebration of
Yeah,
the Mexican independence
right,
from Spain.
right.
Is
yeah.
that what it is, Frank?
Yeah,
Mexican independence from
yeah.
Spain?
El grito,
Yeah.
el grito, yeah,
And then this Independence Day, the
Yeah.
60.
yeah.
And let me see, let me go back to my questions here. You mentioned that besides the Fiestas Patrias, Charlie,
Mhm.
was he involved in any other community activities? Did we have a chamber of commerce back then?
There was,
Or any organizations like that?
My grandfather, I don't recall if he did, but my father belonged to the Exchange Club in Colton, a business organization. So he was in it for a number of years. They used to have and this was a club that was on the north side
Uh-huh.
of Colton. And I remember they had Christmas parties for dads and sons, and I must have been about maybe 5 or 6, and for about 2 or 3 years running, there was always a Christmas party. And I remember being taken to this event, my father's club that he
Uh-huh,
belonged to.
Uh-huh.
So he did, called the Exchange Club. My grandfather, per se, didn't, he was too busy working 12, 18 hours a day.
I was going to ask you, what were the store hours?
He worked, I remember a couple of times I said, I want to get up with you and be at the store, and my God, it was dark when he opened the store. I mean, it had to be like about 5 or 5:30. I mean, the doors were open, there wasn't anybody out there, but he had the store wide open. As he scaled back a little bit in the about the latter part of the 50s, because he used to go to a church in San Bernardino, Our Lady of Guadalupe,
Mhm.
because they had a 5:30 mass, 5:30 a.m.
Mhm.
So my dad used to go, I used to get up and go with him, and my grandfather would go, so he could go to church and then come back and open up the store as soon as possible.
Oh, so they were quite religious then?
Yes, 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 with,
Because the church in San Bernardino must have been, what, half an hour away?
yes, it was Monsignor Nunez,
Mhm.
and the church, not the one that's currently, well, actually, I think it's the one that's currently there, where they used to attend. And, yeah, he was, you know, he wasn't a show-off, but he did, you know, he did go to church on a
Mhm.
weekly basis,
Mhm.
as did my grandmother.
Yeah. You mentioned that your grandfather worked long hours.
Yes.
Did he take any time off on Saturdays and Sundays?
Finally, he did, but in those years,
He was always working?
He was always working.
Uh-huh.
In kind of later years when he owned the store, in the beginning, I think of the 50s, he used to take me to the, I think it was called the Temple Theater in San Bernardino. And they knocked it down. It was next to a restaurant called the Rice Bowl.
Oh,
And
yes, I
other-
remember, yeah, I
remember that?
remember that.
So he used to take, so on Sundays, I think they used to kind of force him to take the afternoon off. And so he used to take me to the movies on a Sunday afternoon.
Uh-huh.
And so that's the only time that I can recall that he ever took any time off.
Now, where did your grandfather live? Did he live just next to on M Street, next to the store?
There were apartments over the store.
Okay.
So they lived in one of the apartments, and then they had three other apartments that they rented out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they lived up
Up,
the
up
apart-
over the store.
Okay.
Mhm.
I thought they had a house next to the store on M Street. Was that your uncle?
That was, the house was my father's. Yeah, that's where I grew up at.
Uh-huh.
So there was, if I can make reference to the picture here,
Mhm.
there was a grocery store, there was a delicatessen, there was a Brill's, and then next to Brill's was a White House, and that's where I grew up.
Yeah. Oh, what about on the other side of the store, Charlie?
On the other side, that was it'd be towards the back of the store. That's where my grandfather's brother lived,
okay.
Carmen Cervantes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's where he
okay. I
lived.
was confusing your
Yeah.
Carmen with your grandfather.
Yeah, no. Grandfather lived above the store, and his brother lived behind.
Did they always live above the store?
Yes, yeah. They had a nice. Again, to me, it was such a big place, and then as an adult, you go in and go, wow.
Well, they had a balcony that they could watch the parade
Oh,
from there.
well, we used to have friends up there. My wife Cynthia was up there enjoying the parade. I mean, it was, we had everybody.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we had the best view in South Colton.
What about your grandmother's patio and the parties in the patio?
Oh, well, actually, my mother, my parents, my father and my mother liked to have just a lot of parties. They had a patio put in, and they used to have just a lot of folks. As we can show this photo later. A lot of people there sitting around.
Now, where was this?
This was at our house.
At your house?
At our house, in
Okay.
the backyard.
Okay.
And there was a special patio that was put in, special, bar and a barbecue. And one of the things that got left behind was my little handprints. When they put in the barbecue in there, they got my 4 or 5-year-old handprints in the barbecue. So, I think as we kind of, before we sold the house, I think I took a photo.
Well, it seems that the Cervantes owned that corner, the whole
Well,
corner.
We did.
You did.
Yeah.
And you said you were born and raised there?
I was born in Riverside,
Okay.
and I was raised in South Colton.
Uh-huh.
I was on my father's side of the family. There were 3 brothers. On my mother's side of the family, there were 5 brothers. So, in retrospect, I'm glad they kept me. Another boy. We wanted a girl. But it was always just South Colton was just. I always felt safe. And the family on both sides was just beautiful, and
So it was very secure.
it was very, very secure.
The neighborhood was secure. The
Yes.
family was provided good secure system.
Yes, they worked hard. My parents sacrificed a lot for us, sending us to private school.
Where did you go to private school?
I went to Immaculate Conception.
Well, just north of.
Right, and I should add that St. Bernardine's had a great school back then. And I started kindergarten at Wilson School, and at home, everybody just spoke Spanish.
Mhm.
And so here I start first grade, and at St. Bernardine's, and I think I was the only Mexicano in the whole school back then.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak English,
Uh-huh.
and guess what? I failed. So from there, I was thinking, what was my mother thinking? I can't understand the language. So then I went to
What grade was that, Carlos?
that was first
Sorry?
grade.
First
Yeah,
grade?
first grade.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to Our Lady of Guadalupe, it was in San Bernardino again. And at this time I passed. It was they're kind of bilingual there. And then they opened up a school in Colton, Immaculate Conception. So I started going there second grade.
Uh-huh.
And I graduated from there in 1959. And then there was the Boys High School, Aquinas. And maybe I mentioned it before, there were 3 priests, Salesian priests that served with honor. And so we had that family characteristic, let's say. So I went to the Boys High School, Aquinas. First year, it was just boys back then. It was very strict. And I didn't want to go back. My father said, "You're going back." So, you didn't argue. He said, "Okay."
Yeah. And then after Aquinas, you went to Cal Poly?
After Aquinas, I went to Valley College.
Okay.
And I went to Valley College, and I was just kind of totally, I wasn't the best of students, of a student back then. And I just didn't know what I was going to do at Valley. And I ended up going one semester, then I ended up going another semester, then I flunked out of Valley College. So at that point in time, I went in the Navy, and I worked for one of my uncles who owned the electrical wholesale house in Montclair. And he had married into the Luna family, my mother's side of the family. So I used to kind of drive a truck delivering construction material to different sites in Orange County. So after that job, after I left that job to go in the Navy, and as you all know, in the 60s, the war was heating up in Vietnam. And kind of going back a little ways, there used to be a movie theater in Colton, the new Colton
The new
Theater.
Colton Theater.
Yeah. So I used to go with my cousins to the matinees and, all these terrific movies, Lewis and Martin, Abbott and Costello, and then one matinee I saw this movie, Men of the Fighting Lady. It was about an aircraft carrier with Walter Pidgeon and Van Johnson, and I go, wow, this shiny ship and, all these planes. And well, little did I realize that 10 years later, I'd get assigned to that ship when I was in the Navy. So I met the ship in the Philippines after doing boot camp in San Diego. And I looked at turned around, or it took us on the bus because the ship had been out at sea, and I waited in the Philippines for the ship to come in. And my first glimpse of the ship was, that doesn't look like the one I saw in the movie. It doesn't shine as much.
So you didn't see Van Johnson on the ship?
Yeah, and I didn't see Van Johnson. I'm thinking, this is a war ship. It's not supposed to sparkle. So,
Yeah, let me get back to your grandfather.
sure.
Your grandfather was not ostentatious.
Mhm.
He didn't spend money that I saw.
No,
He didn't have a fancy car.
no,
He didn't have a fancy house.
no,
He was just a very frugal person.
yes,
And but he was a very giving person in terms of providing food and providing service, and also being a good grandfather.
yes.
So Did he save his money or did he
He,
invested his money?
he saved his money, and I think that's one of the characteristics that I picked up from him.
Mm-hmm.
My father should have picked up a little bit of stuff from it, but I picked up, I think, a lot of the characteristics from him as far as saving, working, working hard, and he was not a fancy guy.
No.
And I've heard stories from the grandchildren of people who used to shop there that, and I didn't know this, I'm at a New Year's party and somebody knows who I am, and they start talking about my grandfather. They always talking about my grandfather, that he used to not only have credit for people, if somebody needed a kind of a loan for an important thing, that he would loan. He said, probably no interest. Just pay me back.
Mm-hmm.
And he would loan people as they needed for not for a want, but for a need
Mm-hmm.
in their particular family. And I knew, it sounds like him, but I never knew that he was like maybe a local bank, I guess.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it was to a great extent, but people knew
If they were in need, they
if
could
they were
go.
in need,
Mhm.
yeah. And like I said, there was no frills. My grandmother, she liked to shop. So whatever my grandfather was saving, my dear beloved grandmother loved to shop.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
she used to go into Los Angeles with my mother and go to Macy's, Clifton's Cafeteria in LA.
Yes.
And she was kind of the shopper. So
Yeah, I remember your grandpa, on many occasions, he would kind of say hello to us and then give us a little piece of candy.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember
No,
he doing that.
it was just a very, very happy,
Uh-huh,
just joyous type.
uh-huh.
Man, even when he was ill, the last kind of year of his life,
Uh-huh.
he just, I remember the priest who did the eulogy said, he was always smiling.
Yeah.
He always had a positive disposition.
Uh-huh.
So,
Did he get together with other business people in the community?
he seemed to know a lot about, his competitors, because
Uh-huh.
there were a lot of grocery stores.
Well, Rodriguez was just down the
Rodriguez.
block from you.
And then there was Martinez. They had a bakery.
Another
on
block.
7th Street, I
western,
think
yeah,
it was.
Right.
And there was one other company. Or
La Tiendita there next to the park in South Colton.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
Navarro had
Navarro,
groceries.
yeah. And there was never any, he never had any harsh words for anybody.
Uh-huh.
And he knew these folks really well, from some of the events,
Yeah.
from South Colton.
Uh-huh.
But he never